Welcome to Inside Tacoma. I'm Elisa O'Hanlon. Today, my guest is Pierce County Auditor, Julie Anderson. Hi, Julie.
Hi, thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, really excited to have you back. Is there an official title, like Ms. Auditor? Or
I can tell you I hate Madam Auditor,
okay.
So just call me Julie. That's the best way to go.
Okay.
Everybody, just Julie.
Just Julie.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Things are pretty busy for you in the auditor's office.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We are super busy. There's two big things happening in March, almost on top of each other. One is the presidential primary. That's the election day is March 10th, and then we're kicking off this decennial census, so the 2020 census, and that self-response portal opens March 12th. So two really big things for America and our community happening in March.
Yeah. So and you've been our auditor for a long time now, but this is
10 years now.
Yeah.
And it's flown by, which means I'm having fun.
Yeah. So tell me about all the fun that the presidential primary is.
Well, our phone lines are having a lot of fun,
Okay.
I'll tell you, because the presidential preference primary is something that only happens every 4 years, and sometimes the legislature cancels it and it doesn't even happen every 4 years. It always creates questions, and it's not your typical election, and in fact, it's not really an election, right?
Okay.
This is an event that is about the two major political parties inviting registered voters to have input on their nominating process to help them select their nominee at their national convention.
Okay.
So it's not a direct election. We're going to have that November 3rd. A couple of things have raised points of confusion and consternation with voters that I really need your help clearing up. So this looks normal enough. This is the normal ballot envelope that you would get. You can see that we've reminded you what date the election is. And we've got a really neat insert in here that answers a lot of questions that people have, but people seem to just kind of toss that out and not read it.
Guilty.
And this is where the questions begin.
Okay.
People will immediately notice that on the return envelope, in addition to your normal voter declaration, where you pledge that you're over the 18, you're qualified to vote, you're a registered voter, you're only going to vote once, yada, 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 you are also going to have to make a selection about which election you're going to participate in. Because these ballots, this is something you don't normally see. You never see color on our ballots.
Okay.
And every ballot in the state right now looks just like this, and every envelope in the state looks just like this, because this is one uniform state election event. You're going to see blue and you're going to see red. And what I like to tell people is you need to pick a lane and you need to stay in it. So you need to pick the blue lane or the red lane on this envelope, and then you need to vote the corresponding color on this ballot.
Okay.
Right? So people aren't used to doing that.
I imagine that there's some discomfort with that, because that's not the way we have to do things.
Washington State is very proudly not partisan, meaning you don't register by political party when you register to vote. And that's why we have to do this every 4 years if we run a presidential preference primary. If you were already a registered Republican or a registered Democrat, I'd know exactly what color ballot to send you for this election. No problem. But you're not registered by party, so I have to send you a universal ballot, if you will, and you have to tell me which election you're going to vote in. And you're not registering by party when you do this. This is going to be public information, again, by state law and by party choice. This is going to be public information for 60 days. So the choice that you make will be on your voter registration record for 60 days, and then we expunge it permanently from your voter registration record. But during that 60 days, heads up, the political parties are going to get...
And that's state law, the 60 days.
That's state law, yeah.
Okay, so...
but the political parties will get this information because part of the purpose, in addition to helping them pick their nominee for the national convention, the other purpose is for the political parties to define who their members are.
Okay.
because we don't register by party.
Okay.
So that's why state law and the state legislature have us give them this information. Another way to think about this is these are two private corporations, the two political parties, and this is a membership activity, if you will.
Okay.
And this is about their internal nominating process.
Okay.
So it's not a direct election. So if
Okay.
you'd like to play in these clubs, participate in this primary.
Okay. All right. So when we get to the November election, what I've indicated for myself here, whether I'm Democrat or Republican, that doesn't apply in the November election.
It doesn't. It doesn't. This is only for March 10th.
Okay.
That you pick a lane and stay in it. After that, you can take any exit ramp you want to.
Okay.
And you can vote for a mixture of candidates from different parties, for governor, for Congress, and for President of the United States. We go back to our tried and true top two primary system in Washington State.
Okay.
This is just for March 10th.
So so March 10th, I almost even want to call it an exercise, not necessarily a direct election.
Right.
So what I'm doing is I'm picking which party that then I want to let them know who I would like them to choose as their nominee.
Yes. Another thing that's a little different that we're getting a lot of questions on that is explained in this insert is, again, these are private companies that get to make their own membership rules. And the Democrats made a selection called uncommitted delegates. That's not available on the Republican side. So if you just can't choose between these candidates, or you're not sure who's still going to be in the running by the time the national convention happens, you can select uncommitted delegates. And that you're telling the party, please send a delegate to the national convention who's going to use their good judgment on the floor, as opposed to if I marked Cory Booker, I'm telling you I want delegates to vote for Cory Booker. Now, that's another set of questions we're getting is quite a few of these candidates have already suspended their campaigns, but we had to print ballots 45 days ago. So we're asking everyone if they have questions about who's alive, who's dead, who can I write in, basically nobody, and what does an uncommitted delegate mean, questions about caucuses versus convention. We're asking people to please go to their local parties and ask those questions. Election workers are not the people to ask because these are private clubs and election workers don't have anything to do with them.
So if they call you, and your response is go to the party, how do they find the party information?
That information is provided on that insert, but also on our webpage, piercecountyelections.org. We've provided local links and state links. And we've also provided caucus dates for you.
Okay, so you can find out all the information about how to get advice from the party and clarification from the party.
Yeah, your web browser is your friend in this election in terms of which candidates are still in the running, how to find your local party, and what the convention dates are.
And you mentioned a write-in option.
Right. So we had to print these ballots with a write-in line because we weren't sure what the parties were going to do. And in the end, both parties, any write-in has to be a declared qualified write-in that's qualified by the parties. No write-in candidates qualified for either party. We know now. So if you write somebody's name in,
then I'm not actually.
You're kind of throwing your vote away. So don't use the write-in because there are no qualified candidates that would earn that vote.
But again, this is an opportunity for me to give direction to whichever party I choose to be a part of at this time. Right? For the next 60 days, I'm choosing to be a part of this party, and it's giving me the opportunity to tell that party, this is who I want you to put forward as your nominee for the presidential election. Hey,
another question that we're getting, just this will be, I think, the last thing that we need to cover is people have a lot of consternation about selecting the election they want to vote in and then putting this in the mail or in the drop box. They're really worried about people seeing this. There's no other way that this could be done and keep your actual vote private. So if you think about it, when you sign here, your voter declaration, we check every single signature to verify the identity of the voter.
Okay.
So we have to be able to check the identity of the voter. And then state law for this election only says that we also need to indicate on your voter record which election you're voting in.
Oh.
So we have to have these two things together.
Okay.
And we have to do this before we open the ballot. Because when we open the ballot,
then it's
anonymous. You're going to have your secrecy envelope, right? And we put that away and divorce it from the ballot, and so that we can't tell which voter voted for which one of these 13 candidates. So that's why it's done that way. It's exactly the way it was done in 2016, and the political parties were satisfied and didn't request any changes. So don't get mad at us about this. And if you're worried about your nosy neighbor, use one of our 46 drop boxes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it takes a lot of workers, both paid and volunteer, to pull off these elections.
Right.
So.
Well, we don't use volunteers.
Okay.
Just FYI. Boy, I've been auditor for 10 years now.
Yeah.
One of the very first things I did was professionalize every position.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're out there fielding all these questions.
Yes.
And it's always a chore to make sure that these are counted in a timely manner and accurately. And now they're fielding, this is confusing, quite frankly.
Right. So there's a lot of detail in every election, but then there's extra question and emotion behind this election.
Yeah.
And our election workers are really taking it on the chin. So I would just ask your viewers, you're not going to have a chance to hug an election worker, but if you do call with a question, just know that a lot of the high emotion, high rhetoric, and the reactivity in our country right now is really displaying itself on social media, which we need to respond to, and also on the phone lines. And just take it down a notch, be calm. We're happy to provide you with information. We're glad that you called. But remember, this is not our activity.
We're
just conducting it on the behalf of the political parties.
Of these parties, so they can get input, so they can advance the nominee that they feel is most reflective of those of us in Washington State.
That's right.
So, so this is going on March 10th
across
the state.
It is, and because it's earlier than it has been in the past, we're a more relevant state, we're getting more attention. You're seeing candidates come into the state, not just to fundraise, but to campaign and hopefully pay attention to our unique state issues. So we are happy about that.
Okay. All right. So as the national news talks about this is what's happening in New Hampshire and Nevada, they'll be talking about what's happening in Washington.
And we did argue, by the way, the Secretary of State Kim Wyman and county auditors, we argued hard with the legislature and with the political parties to allow unaffiliated voters to participate. And like a decade or so ago, you were able to say that you were unaffiliated or independent. And we lost that battle, unfortunately. So this is only if you're willing to declare that you are a Republican or that you prefer the Democratic Party. So,
at least for the next 60 days.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. Let's talk about the other big thing on your plate. 2 days later, after the March 10th primary.
Oh, it's actually happening right now.
It's happening right now is the census. And this only happens every 10 years.
Yes, every 10 years.
Yeah.
So the Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, which I hope everybody knows about in our community, has partnered up with local government and my office to make sure that we have a complete count in Pierce County. I think a lot of, because we only do this every 10 years, I think people forget. And of course, there's a whole generation of people that haven't experienced the census. So it's new every 10 years. And yet it's the same and has been for over a century.
My child was only 10 when the last census occurred. So now that she's 20, this is entirely new to her.
Right. So here's what hasn't changed. What hasn't changed is it's mandatory. It's the law. Everybody has to respond to the census. It's also a head count. That hasn't changed. This isn't that long form questionnaire where we ask you what car you drive and how many refrigerators you have. That's not it.
What?
That's a long form census, and that's a survey. This is a head count, literally.
Okay.
And it's only 10 questions, and it's pretty much been that way since the beginning of time. And it's all tied to your address, They want to know who's living in your household on April 1st. There's some race and ethnicity questions, age, birth date, and there is no question about citizenship or legal status. Okay. I was alarmed to hear yesterday that 50% of Americans surveyed still thought that there was going to be a citizenship question on, which was briefly considered by the federal government, but that is not on the survey.
Because this is a head count. This is about how many people are residing.
And where they live.
And where they live.
And the job of the count is to count everybody that's drawing breath in America.
Yeah.
Count them once, only once, and in the right place.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty simple exercise, but getting that message out to every nook and cranny in our community is a challenge. Yeah. We've got people that don't speak English as a first language or don't speak English at all. We've got people who are tuned out. We've got people that are transitory, they're moving a lot, or they may even be experiencing homelessness. And all of those people, regardless of their language, their internet access, where they receive mail, how many times they're moving, how old they are, they all have to get counted.
Yeah.
Here's news. What has changed in the last 10 years is that the Census Bureau is banking, literally, that 60% of the people who get counted will self-respond online. That is brand new.
Pretty huge. How do they figure 60%? That seems ambitious to me.
When I said banking on it, that their budget assumptions are assuming that 60% of Americans will get counted through a self-response online, which means they're trying to save money on postage, printing, and all that stuff by not mailing questionnaires to every household. So on March, Census Day is April 1st. I think a lot of people remember that, but we're really having a census period.
No fooling on April 1st.
Yeah, what a ridiculous date. Whatever. Just kidding, we didn't want to count you. No. April 1st is Census Day, and you should consider that like a deadline, like an election day. But like an election, we are going to have a census period. So March 12th, you're going to start receiving mail from the census. That's an invitation to self-respond online. And you're going to go to 2020census.gov, and there'll be a button where you can start your count for your household. It's 10 questions, 10 minutes, but it has 10 years worth of impact in terms of federal funding and how it gets block granted and decisions that we make in our community based on census data and population projections. So it's super important. But it's going to be convenient because you'll have from March 12th through April 1st to respond online. What else do you need to know? Also, for people that don't have internet access, and about 14% of Pierce County residents have sketchy internet, you can respond over the phone and not through an obnoxious press 1, press 2, but actually talking with somebody. And talking with somebody that's available in 13 different languages. That's the other good thing about that online portal. That is also available in 13 languages. So it's really pretty convenient, pretty accessible. Pierce County is going to be standing up a complete count assistance center at my office from March 23rd through March 27th for a week. And then every public library in Pierce County, so Tacoma, Puyallup, and rural Pierce County, all of those library branches will also be acting as questionnaire assistance centers as soon as the questionnaire the self-response period opens. So people that are confused or not quite sure how to answer the question, I think it's pretty simple, but they may have questions about, well, my husband and I got divorced, and the kids spend half the time at his house and half the time at my house. Where should the kids get counted? That's a real common question. Questionnaire assistance centers are going to help you answer that question. So a good way to do it is on the phone or online.
Now, what if I miss April 1st?
They are going to come looking for you. The other reason that the census is doing an online and by phone response period is they don't want to send enumerators or census workers knocking at your door. And I think that's what most people remember is they mail you a form, and if you don't get it or you don't send it in, somebody comes knocking at your door. Knocking at your door is the census count of last resort. So if you miss it, they're going to send you a couple of reminders, and then starting starting April 20th, they're actually going to come knocking at your door. So if you enjoy your privacy or don't want your favorite TV show interrupted, or you're a day sleeper, you really need to pay attention and either respond online, respond by phone. They'll eventually mail you a questionnaire right before they send an enumerator to your door, but let's not let it get that far.
Yeah.
And the paper form is only going to be available in English and Spanish, so it's not the most accessible way to respond to the census.
Okay. But again, it's really important because this is how we make decisions. We'll make decisions for the next 10 years, particularly about funding from the federal government. So the census estimates that in Pierce County, 10 years ago, every individual that didn't get counted, from a 4-year-old kid to a senior citizen, just anybody that didn't get counted, Pierce County lost $1,600 per person per year over 10 years in federal block grant funding and federal funding. And federal funding isn't the only reason. I think it's very, very important for all of us to understand what we look like as a community, where we live, our age, our race, and to make the visible, the invisible visible. I think it's really important. Also, commercial businesses make decisions based on the census. If you want a better grocery store, then you need to fill out the census. They look at those populations. If you want improved transit, make sure that you get counted. Transportation does a lot of planning based on the census. So it's important, it's the law, and it's easy to do. Wow. So you all are taking a greater leadership role, the auditor's office, in this.
Well, Pierce County is, again, because we know how important it is. In 10 years ago, and the Census Bureau projects we're at risk to have a 10% undercount in hard-to-reach communities. So that's why we're getting busy. And there's an awful lot in common between elections and the census, which is why our office has gotten a little bit involved. Again, Greater Tacoma Community Foundation is really taking the lead here. They've been granting state funds to like over 40 nonprofit organizations and churches to get the word out. But we're getting involved because, you know, counting everyone just once in the right place, you know, on the right day, sounds an awful lot like an election. And the people who aren't paying attention to the census are probably the same people who aren't paying attention to elections. So it makes a lot of sense, especially with these overlapping elections, for us to carry dual messages out into the field and make sure that everybody who's qualified to vote registers to vote, and make sure that everybody participates in the census.
Well, thank you for being our auditor. That's a lot of work to be.
It's a lot of fun, and there's a big sense of urgency. So March and April is a really important time for our nation and for the community.
So 10 minutes, 10 questions. When that portal opens on March 12th, just set aside 10 minutes to answer those 10 questions. It makes such a difference for planning for our community for the next 10 years.
And tell a friend.
And tell a friend. That's what you can do. That's fantastic. You've got a lot on your plate. But are there other changes that are happening in the auditor's office right now?
Well, I never miss a chance to tell people that we not just manage elections, but vehicle licensing. Oh my goodness, we could do a whole show on car tabs.
We won't do that.
Vehicle licensing, business licensing, public document recording, but no longer animal control. That's new. So in the last budget process for Pierce County, I was able to shift animal control program back to the sheriff's office, where I have long felt that it belonged. And the sheriff's office has taken on that program. Citizens won't know the difference. Same animal control officers, same animal laws, same phone number, website. They won't be able to tell a difference. But the supervision of the program is now going to be, I think, where it's better suited with the sheriff's office. The last case under my supervision was breaking up a dog fighting ring, seizing 49 pit bulls, having to serve that warrant with the SWAT team in collaboration with the State Gambling Commission. What those animal control officers do is heavy work, and undoubtedly it's public safety and law enforcement work, and I think you can see why it was better suited to be in the sheriff's office.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But
so
from
that's new.
But from a citizen, if I have an animal control concern,
you're going to call 798 PETS just like you always have, and you're going to use the same website and web address. You're not going to notice a difference, and it's going to be the same great officers responding to calls. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. It is good.
One other timely thing right now is the state legislative session. Our legislators are in session, and it's a short session.
Tell me about it.
So it's moving really quickly. It will be wrapped up in March.
I am hoping we are finally going to get a bill across the finish line that will have the state paying their fair share of elections. Most people do not realize this, but the county general fund budget picks up the tab in even years, which is, it's a lot of money that we have to suck up that could be going to courts, cops,
all of
health
those
departments,
other things,
all the things
all
that the county is responsible for.
So, and part of that, it pays for this presidential primary that
no, the presidential is different.
Okay.
But the 2018 general election, it was nearly $1 million of state costs that our general fund had to suck up. So the lawmakers are really paying attention to that.
Okay.
And we've got a bill in Senate Ways and Means under consideration.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping lawmakers can get it across the finish line so that when it comes to elections, regardless of what year it is, we're all going to divvy up the bill fairly and evenly, whether you're a water district, a school district, city of Tacoma, or the state of Washington. I think it's just fair.
Okay. So. All right. Well, thank you. That's a lot of stuff on your plate. 2020 is going to be a big year in the world of auditors. And
it's going to be fun too.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we hope everyone will participate in the presidential primary and the census. And I want to thank you, Julie, our Pierce County Auditor, for being with us today. Thank you for tuning in to Inside Tacoma. I'm Elisa O'Hanlon. Please come again.